The Secret of the Silver Feather. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning, the kind of morning where the sun hung lazily in the sky, casting soft beams of golden light through the rustling leaves above. Mia had walked this same path countless times before, the rhythm of her footsteps echoing in sync with the quiet hum of the world around her. Her backpack, laden with textbooks and notes, swung gently from her shoulders as she made her way home from school, her mind lost in thoughts of the upcoming math test that loomed like a shadow in the back of her mind. She wasn't dreading it exactly. It was just another test, another hurdle she'd need to get over. But her mind couldn't help but wander, rehearsing formulas and equations, trying to hold onto all the details she had crammed into her brain in the days leading up to it. The morning felt ordinary in every sense of the word. The air was crisp, but not too cold, the kind of autumn chill that brushed lightly against your skin without lingering. The distant hum of traffic, the soft rustling of leaves, and the occasional chirp of a bird overhead blended into a comforting soundtrack that seemed to make everything feel small, calm, and manageable. Mia wasn't rushing anywhere. She never really had to. School was over, and the rest of her day would unfold in the usual way: a snack, a few hours of homework, maybe a quick walk with her dog, and then a quiet evening at home. But as she walked, her thoughts started to drift away from the mundane. She glanced at the familiar sights around her, the row of houses on her street with their neatly manicured lawns, the old oak tree that stood like a sentinel at the corner of her block, and the worn sidewalk that had been cracked in places by years of traffic and time. There was nothing special about any of it. It was the same as it had been yesterday and the day before, and the day before that. But today, for some strange reason, the normal rhythm of the world seemed off, just slightly. It wasn't anything she could explain, but something about the air felt thicker, heavier, like the world itself was waiting for something to happen. Mia shook off the feeling, attributing it to the usual school day stress, but the sensation wouldn't go away. And then, as though to confirm her thoughts, something caught her eye. A flash of light, brief, almost imperceptible, but there nonetheless. At first, Mia thought she had imagined it. A trick of the light, perhaps, or the reflection of a car's shiny bumper. She shook her head, blinking to clear the sudden confusion that had crept into her mind. But no, the shimmer appeared again, this time more pronounced. A small glimmer, bright and silver, lying at the edge of the sidewalk. Her heart gave a small, surprised flutter. She stopped, instinctively narrowing her eyes as she tried to focus on the source of the mysterious light. Was it a piece of trash, catching the sun in just the right way? A crumpled aluminum can or a piece of foil that had been blown from a nearby trash bin? No. As Mia stepped closer, she could see it clearly now, lying on the concrete as though it belonged there, as though it had always been there, just waiting for someone to notice it. It was a feather. But not just any feather. This one was unlike any she had ever seen. It shimmered in the sunlight, casting an ethereal glow that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The metallic sheen of the feather was so bright and silver that it almost seemed to glow from within, catching the light at every angle and reflecting it back in a dazzling array of sparks. It was delicate, yet unearthly, like something crafted by an invisible hand with an artful precision that no ordinary bird could produce. Its long, slender shape seemed to stretch forever, tapering to a fine point at the tip. The veins running through the feather weren't like the simple strands of a normal feather. Instead, they were intricate, webbed in delicate patterns that reminded Mia of fine lace or the veins of a leaf in autumn, fragile yet undeniably strong. For a moment, Mia simply stood there, transfixed. Her hand, almost on its own, reached out toward the feather, as though some invisible force was guiding her movements. She was vaguely aware of her surroundings, the faint sounds of traffic in the distance, the rustling of the trees above her, but all of it seemed distant, muffled. The only thing that mattered in that moment was the feather. It lay there, in the middle of the sidewalk, utterly out of place. The world around her seemed to pause, holding its breath, as if waiting for her to make the next move. Was she imagining this? Had someone dropped it, or was it a figment of her imagination, conjured by the stress of the upcoming test? But no, this didn't feel like a figment of her imagination. This was real. This was something tangible, something that beckoned to her with a quiet force that she couldn't explain. Her fingers hovered above the feather, uncertain, hesitant. Should she pick it up? What if it was dangerous? What if it was just some kind of trick? But the pull to touch it was undeniable, stronger than any doubt or hesitation. With a shaky breath, Mia extended her fingers and gently brushed the edge of the feather. The moment her fingers made contact, a shock of cold ran through her hand, as though the feather itself had a hidden power. It wasn't painful, but it was startling. A jolt that made her heart race in her chest. The sensation was not unlike touching a live wire, but it wasn't entirely unpleasant either. In fact, it was almost comforting, as though she had touched something ancient and powerful, something with a deep connection to the world around her. The feather felt smooth, but at the same time, it was unnaturally light, as if it could float away at any moment. Mia carefully lifted the feather, marveling at how it seemed to defy gravity. It was so light that it almost floated in her hand, like a piece of paper caught in a breeze. She turned it over, inspecting the intricate patterns that ran through it. The silver veins shimmered as if they were alive, shifting with the light, and Mia could have sworn that the feather pulsed ever so slightly, as though it had a heartbeat of its own. She felt a strange warmth spread through her fingers, like the feather was absorbing the heat of her skin and returning it tenfold. The more she stared at it, the more she felt a growing sense of wonder, of something deeper that she couldn't quite grasp. It wasn't just a feather. It was something else. Something beyond ordinary understanding. Mia's mind raced with questions, too many to form into words. What was this? Why had it appeared here, on this ordinary sidewalk? And why, of all people, had it been her who found it? She looked around, half expecting to see someone else. Someone who could explain the feather's presence, someone who might have dropped it or placed it there. But the street was empty as it had been when she first noticed the shimmer. The only sound was the rustling of the trees overhead and the distant hum of cars on the main road. There was no one except her. Her fingers tightened around the feather instinctively, a sense of responsibility surging through her. She wasn't sure why, but it felt like this moment, this encounter, was more significant than she could understand. It wasn't just about the feather, it was about what it represented, the mystery it carried with it. As she stood there, holding the feather in her hand, a strange stillness seemed to settle over the world. It was as if time itself had slowed, just for her. The air was thick now, charged with something unseen, something ancient. She felt like she was being watched, but not in a way that made her fearful. It was a watching that felt expectant, as though the world itself had paused and was waiting for her to make a choice, to do something with this discovery. Mia's heart beat faster, her thoughts racing, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was no accident. This feather, this inexplicable object, had found its way into her hands for a reason, and that reason was about to unfold before her eyes. Whether she was ready for it or not, she couldn't say. But something told her she was about to step into a world far beyond what she had known, a world where the ordinary was anything but. Mia leaned down, her movements slow and deliberate, as though she were approaching something precious. Something fragile that could easily slip away. Her fingers hovered in the air for just a moment, the anticipation thick, heavy in the space between her and the object on the ground. The feather was lying there, impossibly beautiful and strange, shimmering in the sunlight, glinting with an otherworldly sheen that caught her eye and wouldn't let go. She had walked this path countless times before, each step familiar, each corner predictable, but now everything had shifted. The world around her felt suddenly different. Every detail, every shadow, every rustle of the trees, seemed sharper, more vivid, as though the air itself had thickened with some unseen force. She took a deep breath and knelt slowly, her fingers inching toward the feather, drawn to it like it was pulling her in, like it was waiting for her to touch it. She knew that in picking it up, she would be making a choice. It felt like there was a kind of invisible weight to it, like the air had thickened, every molecule vibrating with potential, as if the feather itself held a secret, one that only she could uncover. The quiet hum of the world seemed to fade, becoming distant, muffled. The normal rhythm of life was still there in the background, but it felt far removed, as though it belonged to another world. When her fingers finally brushed the feather, she felt a strange sensation shoot through her hand. It wasn't cold, but neither was it warm. It was something else. The touch was soft and almost velvety, yet beneath it lay a coolness that seemed to seep deep into her bones. It was a coolness that reached past her skin and into her very core, making her body tingle in ways she couldn't quite explain. The world around her blurred slightly, her surroundings fading to the periphery as the feeling intensified. It was as though she had just touched something alive, something with a heartbeat, something ancient. Her grip tightened instinctively, though she wasn't sure why. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was as if the feather had wrapped itself around her, becoming a part of her, and now it was refusing to let go. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she could feel the feather moving in her hand, not like a fluttering bird, but like something more subtle, more deliberate. The air around her seemed to shift, as if the wind itself had paused in reverence to the moment, holding its breath. She blinked, but the sensation remained, and it grew stronger, a hum vibrating in the air, almost imperceptible but unmistakable. And then, just as her fingers tightened around the feather, a sound, soft, almost imperceptible, whispered through the air. It wasn't a voice in the traditional sense, but a whisper carried on the wind, so quiet that it might have been mistaken for the rustling of leaves or the distant murmur of traffic. But it wasn't that. No, this was something different, something distinct, something that made Mia's skin prickle with a kind of electric awareness. It was as if the wind had come alive and was speaking just to her. The words weren't fully formed, not at first, but the feeling, the sensation, was enough to send a shiver down her spine. She stood frozen for a moment, the feather still in her hand, her pulse quickening. Her head turned slightly, scanning the street, expecting to see someone, anyone, watching her. But the street was empty, as it had been moments before. The world seemed strangely still, eerily quiet. The whisper hadn't come from anyone around her. It hadn't even come from anywhere specific, just the air itself. But Mia could feel it. It was as though the universe itself had paused, holding its breath, waiting for her to respond. The whisper came again, this time clearer, as if it was meant for her ears alone. The words were faint but distinct, and they seemed to swirl around her, filling the space between her and the feather, as though the air was thick with the sound of them. Mia. Her name was spoken softly, as though it were a secret between them, a name spoken with the kind of intimacy that made her feel like she was being called by something greater than herself. It wasn't a voice she recognized, but it felt familiar, somehow, like the voice had always been there, just waiting for her to notice. The sound lingered in the air, hanging like a mist, and Mia couldn't help but shiver, her fingers tightening further around the feather, almost instinctively. Mia, you have been chosen. The words were soft, but they felt like a thunderclap in her chest. Her heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, she had to catch her breath, the weight of the statement sinking in. Chosen? What did that mean? Chosen for what? Her mind raced with questions, but before she could grasp the meaning of the words, the whisper faded again, as fleeting and mysterious as it had come. The silence returned, but now, it felt different. It was no longer the familiar quiet of the neighborhood, but a heavy, expectant silence that wrapped around her like a cloak. The feather in her hand felt heavier now, more solid, but also somehow lighter at the same time, as though it existed in two states at once. She could feel the strange energy thrumming beneath the surface, like an invisible pulse running through her hand, through her arm, into her chest, into her very soul. It was as though the feather had a life of its own, like it was connected to her in some way she couldn't yet understand. The warmth she had felt when she first touched it had spread, and now it was a part of her, running through her veins, like fire that had been stoked into a slow burn. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to process the flood of emotions and thoughts that surged through her, but the world around her seemed to blur, and the whisper, her name, echoed in her mind again, louder now, not just a voice in the wind but a voice that seemed to come from deep within her, like a memory long forgotten, reawakening. It was almost as if the wind itself was carrying the weight of some ancient message, one meant for her alone. She had to make a decision, but Mia didn't know what it was yet. She didn't know what she was being asked to choose. And then, as if to confirm the weight of the moment, the air seemed to shift. A rush of wind swirled around her, lifting the leaves off the ground, sending them dancing in the air, spinning in a wild, chaotic pattern. The feather pulsed once more, and this time, Mia felt the pulse deep within her chest, like the flutter of wings in her heart. The sound of the whisper was gone, but the feeling remained, stronger now, more insistent, like something was tugging at her very soul, pulling her toward an unknown fate. The stillness in the air returned, and Mia found herself holding the feather with a new understanding. She was no longer just a girl walking home from school. She was something more. Something had shifted in her, deep within her. The world felt different now, as though the very ground beneath her feet was connected to the vastness of the sky above, to everything she couldn't see, to everything she didn't yet know. She opened her eyes, looking down at the feather again. It no longer felt like an object, something tangible, something she could discard if she chose. It felt like a part of her, like it had always belonged to her, and she to it. Mia had always thought that life was simple: studies, friends, family. But now, she understood that there was so much more, so much beyond the surface of everyday life. And she was standing at the edge of it, teetering between the familiar and the unknown, the ordinary and the extraordinary. Her fingers traced the veins of the feather, and the whisper returned, louder this time. She didn't understand the words, but somehow, she felt them in her chest. The feather was more than just a symbol. It was a message. She had been chosen for something. Something bigger than herself, bigger than anything she could have imagined. The question was she ready to accept it? Mia had always been a dreamer, someone whose mind often wandered far beyond the confines of her everyday life. She'd spend hours lying on the grass, staring up at the sky, imagining herself in faraway lands, places filled with dragons, hidden kingdoms, and secret powers waiting to be discovered. Or she'd bury herself in books, pages full of magic and adventure, each one a portal to a world more fascinating than her own. It wasn't that Mia disliked her life, she just knew there had to be more. The world was vast, full of hidden mysteries and untold stories, and she longed to uncover them. But until now, it had always been just a dream. Until today. This feather? This was something different. It wasn't just an object, it felt alive in her hand, pulsing with energy, as if it was part of some grand story she hadn't yet been told. It was too surreal to ignore. The moment she touched it, she felt a deep connection, an unspoken understanding that she was standing on the brink of something extraordinary. And as she held it now, turning it over in her fingers, she couldn't shake the sense that this was just the beginning of a much bigger adventure. "Is this from a bird?" Mia muttered aloud, her voice barely more than a whisper. She tilted the feather in the light, examining it from every angle. She had seen feathers before, dull brown ones, soft white ones, even vibrant reds and blues, but none of them had ever felt like this. This one was too shiny, too otherworldly. The edges gleamed with a soft, ethereal light, as though it were made of pure silver rather than any material found in nature. It didn't look like it belonged in the world of birds and trees. No, this feather was something else, something that didn't fit into any of the neat categories Mia had in her mind. She ran her thumb over the surface, expecting it to feel cold or metallic, but instead, it was almost weightless, like a regular feather. The delicate structure, so fine and intricate, was astonishing in its precision. Yet, beneath her touch, she could sense something more, a pulse, a vibration that was barely perceptible but undeniably present. It was as though the feather was humming with life, with energy, with something she couldn't define. Mia frowned, her brow furrowed in confusion as she continued to examine the feather. "Where did you come from?" she whispered to it, as if it might answer her. She had to admit, it seemed impossible for something like this to simply be lying on the sidewalk, waiting for her to find it. How had it come to be there? And why her? She glanced around the room, her gaze drifting over her cluttered desk. It was covered in the usual assortment of things: textbooks, notebooks, a half-drunk mug of hot chocolate, a pile of pencils that had seen better days. The faint light from the window outside bathed the room in the warm hues of dusk, the sun sinking lower in the sky. The evening was creeping in, but Mia couldn't shake the unease that had settled over her since she found the feather. A strange tension lingered in the air, thickening the atmosphere, making the room feel charged with something she couldn't explain. Still holding the feather, Mia sat down at her desk and began to open her math book, trying to focus on the equations in front of her. But the numbers and letters blurred together, her mind drifting back to the silver feather in her hand. She couldn't concentrate. She couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time she tried to push it out of her mind, it kept pulling her back in, like an invisible thread tethering her thoughts. She wasn't used to feeling this distracted, this restless. It wasn't like her to let something so trivial keep her from finishing her work, but then again, this wasn't a trivial thing, was it? She placed the feather gently on the corner of her desk, hoping that putting it down would allow her to focus. But even as she did, she couldn't help but keep glancing at it out of the corner of her eye, as though it were calling to her. The silver shimmer, the way it seemed to almost pulse, the way it felt both familiar and foreign at the same time, it all unsettled her. There was something about it that felt alive. But how could that be possible? Feathers weren't alive, not in the way that the feather in her room seemed to be. This wasn't a simple object. It was a puzzle, one that Mia didn't know how to solve. The quiet hum of her desk lamp filled the room as she tried to force her attention back to her homework, but it was useless. The air felt thick now, heavier than before, like the world was pressing in on her, and it wasn't just the feather anymore. It was something more. Mia's fingers twitched, and without realizing it, she reached for the feather again. She touched it lightly, but this time, something shifted. A soft, gentle glow began to emanate from it. At first, it was so faint she almost thought she imagined it. But then the light grew brighter, warmer, filling the room with an eerie silver glow that seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat. The shadows in the corners of the room stretched and wavered in response, as if the very air was alive, bending in the light. Mia sat frozen, staring at the feather in her hand, watching in disbelief as it shimmered with an almost supernatural radiance. Her breath caught in her throat as the room seemed to grow dimmer, the light from the window fading as the silver glow intensified, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. The light was not just a reflection or a trick of the eyes. It was real, and it was coming from the feather itself. It wasn't just glowing, it was alive, almost as if it were breathing. The edges of the feather shimmered with a bright, unearthly gleam, and for the first time, Mia felt like she wasn't just holding a small object. She was holding something powerful, something that carried with it the weight of an ancient secret. Mia's heart raced as she slowly lifted the feather to her face, her eyes wide, studying it. The glow was warm now, almost comforting, but there was something deeper in it, something she couldn't grasp yet. She thought about the stories she had read in her books, about magical creatures, enchanted objects, things that carried a power beyond comprehension. She had always imagined that those kinds of things existed only in the pages of her favorite novels. But now, sitting in her room, holding this glowing feather, she wasn't so sure anymore. Was this real? Was this happening? Her mind raced with questions. What was this feather? Where had it come from? Why had it chosen her? And why was it glowing like that, casting such a strange light? It wasn't supposed to be possible. Feathers didn't glow. They didn't pulse with energy, didn't hum with a life force of their own. But Mia couldn't deny what she was seeing. The feather had somehow transcended everything she knew about the world. It wasn't just something that could be explained away with logic or reason. It was something else. The glow continued to intensify, filling the room with its strange, silvery light. The longer she stared at it, the more she felt an odd sense of connection, like the feather was reaching out to her, pulling her into its orbit. The air seemed to grow heavier still, the weight of something ancient and important pressing in from all sides. Mia's heart beat faster, her mind swirling with confusion and wonder. She didn't know what this meant, what was happening, but she knew one thing for sure. Whatever this feather was, it was only the beginning of something much, much bigger. And it was only a matter of time before the answers came. Her heart raced, a wild thumping in her chest, almost as if it were trying to keep pace with the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions swirling in her mind. Could this be real magic? The kind of magic she had only read about in her favorite fantasy novels or dreamed about when she looked up at the stars, imagining that there was more to the world than the everyday routine of school and homework? Could something like this really exist? Or was she simply overtired, overwhelmed by the mountain of studying she'd done for her math test, her brain tricking her into believing that something extraordinary was happening when, in reality, it was just the product of stress and exhaustion? The questions tumbled over each other in her head, each one more urgent than the last, but one thought seemed to rise above the rest. I've got to find out more. The words were simple, but the determination behind them was anything but. Mia knew she couldn't just leave the feather to sit in her backpack, forgotten by the end of the week. She had to understand it. She had to know where it came from, why it had appeared in her life, and, most importantly, what it wanted from her. There was something undeniable about it. From the moment she had first touched it, there had been a feeling, an unmistakable feeling, that she was no longer just a regular girl. She was a part of something larger, something different. And she was determined to figure out what that meant, even if it meant going down a path she hadn't planned on. As the sun sank below the horizon that evening, Mia lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the images of the glowing feather from her mind. She tried to push them aside, tried to focus on the math problems she still had to finish, but it was no use. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the shimmer of silver. She heard the faint hum that seemed to rise from it. It was as though the feather had planted itself in her mind, taking root like some kind of seed. And with it came a thirst for answers, a pull she couldn't ignore. She had to know more. The next morning, Mia packed her backpack as usual, but as she slid the silver feather into the front pocket, she could feel a quiet sense of urgency, like the day ahead would be a turning point in a much larger story. Her fingers brushed over the cool, smooth metal once more, and though the glow was faint now, she still couldn't shake the feeling that it was waiting for something to happen. School felt like it dragged on forever. The minutes stretched into hours as Mia tried to focus on her lessons, her teachers' voices blurring together, the chalk screeching on the blackboard like distant static. But all she could think about was the feather. Every time she looked out the window, every time she tapped her pencil absent-mindedly on her notebook, it was there in her thoughts, calling her back to it. The light had faded, but the sense of something important, something larger than life, still clung to her like a second skin. At lunch, she sat at the usual table with her best friend, Lily, trying to act normal. But Mia could feel her heart racing as she glanced down at her backpack, the faint outline of the feather pressing against the fabric, just under the surface. She felt as though she were carrying a secret, and it was too heavy to ignore any longer. Lily, as always, was chattering away, talking about the latest gossip at school, her usual chatterbox self, but Mia's mind was elsewhere. She didn't even hear the beginning of Lily's story about a new student in their class, or about how someone had brought their pet ferret to school in a backpack. "Mia, are you listening?" Lily's voice broke through her thoughts like a sudden clap of thunder. Mia blinked, pulling herself back to the present, looking at Lily's expectant face. "Yeah, sorry," Mia said, forcing a smile. "I guess I was a little distracted." Lily raised an eyebrow, the suspicion in her eyes obvious. "You've been off today. More than usual. What's going on?" Mia hesitated, then glanced down at her backpack, feeling a small tug of anxiety in her stomach. She knew she couldn't keep it a secret any longer. Not from Lily. Lily was the one person who might actually understand, who wouldn't think she was losing her mind. Without a word, Mia reached over and unzipped the front pocket of her bag. Slowly, she pulled the silver feather out and placed it on the table between them. Lily froze. Her eyes went wide, and her mouth dropped open slightly. "What is that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mia took a deep breath. "I don't really know," she admitted. "But I found it yesterday. It was just lying on the sidewalk when I walked home from school. And when I touched it, I don't know how to explain it, but it felt different. It didn't feel like a regular feather. It felt alive, like there was something inside it, something waiting to be discovered." Lily leaned forward, her curiosity now completely piqued. "Alive?" she repeated, reaching out with cautious fingers to touch it. "How can a feather be alive?" Mia shook her head, her mind still swirling with the impossible mystery. "I don't know, but when I touched it, it glowed, not like a light bulb but like it was pulsing with something. And it wasn't just the glow. It felt like it was connected to me somehow. And last night, when I was sitting in my room, I swear I heard a sound like a whisper or maybe a hum. It was so soft, I thought it was just my imagination, but I don't think it was. Lily was quiet for a moment, absorbing the information. She reached out and touched the feather again, this time more confidently. The silver shimmer caught the light, almost as if it were responding to her touch. Whoa, Lily breathed. That's unreal. It doesn't feel like a regular feather at all. It's so smooth, but it's almost cold like metal. And the light, it's faint but it's still there. Mia nodded, her heart skipping a beat as she watched Lily carefully examine the feather. I know. I've been thinking about it all day, and I can't get it out of my head. I need to know what it is. Where it came from. Why it's in my hands. I think there's more to this than just a random object. I think this is a sign of something bigger, something that's about to happen. Lily looked up at her, her face a mix of disbelief and fascination. You're saying it's magic? Like real magic? She seemed to be processing the idea, her eyes narrowing in thought. Mia hesitated. I don't know, but it sure feels like it. And if it is, I want to figure it out. I can't just let this go. If there's something hidden in this, something important, I need to know what it is. Lily leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed, her lips pursed in thought. Then, without missing a beat, she grinned. Well, if you're going on a magic hunt, I'm in. We can't just sit around and let this mystery go unsolved. You're not doing this alone. Mia felt a rush of relief. For the first time since she'd found the feather, she wasn't alone in this. Lily was in it with her. Are you sure? I mean, this could be dangerous, right? We don't even know what this is yet. Lily laughed, a gleam of excitement in her eyes. Dangerous? Who cares? This is magic we're talking about. If we're going to figure out what's really going on, we have to dive in headfirst. I've got your back, Mia. We'll figure this out together. The weight that had been pressing on Mia's chest all day lifted, and for the first time, she felt like everything was about to change. She didn't know what that change would look like or where it would lead them, but with Lily by her side, she felt ready to take the leap into whatever lay ahead. The adventure was just beginning. What's that? Lily asked, her voice sharp with curiosity, her gaze fixated on the shimmering object in front of her. There was a flicker of something in her eyes, a spark that said she knew this was no ordinary feather. It was as if the air around them had shifted the moment Mia revealed it. But then, maybe that was just Mia's imagination, already starting to weave the story of something magical in her mind. Mia hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. She hadn't shared the feather with anyone before, had barely even allowed herself to think about what it meant. There was something powerful about the feather, and yet, it felt like a fragile secret, one that might slip through her fingers if she wasn't careful. She had no idea how to explain it, how to put into words the strange pull she felt toward it, the energy that seemed to hum within it. But if anyone could understand, it was Lily. I found this on the sidewalk yesterday, Mia said, her voice almost a whisper. She kept her eyes on the feather as she slid it across the table, feeling the pulse of energy that lingered around it. It glows. But I don't know why. I think it's magical. Lily leaned in, her expression unreadable as she took in the sight of the feather. Mia could almost hear the wheels turning in her best friend's head. For a moment, the two girls just stared at the object between them, the silence stretching out like an invitation to discover something neither of them fully understood. After a long, charged pause, Lily finally blinked and raised an eyebrow. Her lips twitched into a playful smirk. You've been reading too many of those fantasy books again, haven't you? Maybe it's just some weird bird feather. I mean, they're all over the place, right? Maybe it's just a freaky bird with a weird genetic mutation. You know, like a silver-feathered pigeon or something. Mia couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of a glittering pigeon, but the laughter felt hollow, as if the weight of what she was saying was too serious for that. I thought the same thing at first. I really did. But when I touched it, it was different. I don't know how to explain it, but it feels different. It's like it's waiting for something. Like it has a purpose. Lily gave her an exaggerated, skeptical look, clearly not entirely convinced. Purpose, huh? All right, Mia. So, are we talking about something like a magic wand here? Like in Harry Potter? Her smirk grew wider, and she almost seemed to enjoy teasing Mia about her overactive imagination. But then something incredible happened. Without thinking, Lily reached out and gently touched the feather. The moment her fingers brushed against it, the atmosphere around them seemed to shift. There was a faint pulse of energy, a surge of something almost electric, like a static charge building up between them. For a brief second, Mia thought she had imagined it. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, the result of all the excitement she had built up in her mind. But then, something even stranger occurred. The feather, which had been lying motionless on the table, shifted. It moved. Not in the way an ordinary object would if it were nudged, but as though it were alive, like it was responding to Lily's touch. Mia's breath caught in her throat as the air around them suddenly seemed to hum, almost as if the room itself was coming to life. A soft wind began to stir, lifting their hair and causing the leaves outside the window to rustle in a rhythm that felt too deliberate to be natural. The breeze was warm, almost electric, and it swirled around them like a living thing, a presence in the air. Mia could feel the soft tickle of the wind against her skin, the way it teased her hair, lifting it into the air like an invisible force was guiding it. The room itself seemed to vibrate, as though reality was bending ever so slightly, allowing something new to enter. Mia's heart hammered in her chest, and her eyes went wide as she watched Lily. Her best friend's fingers were still resting lightly on the feather, but her expression had changed. The usual skepticism had vanished, replaced by something else, something that mirrored the awe Mia felt inside. Lily pulled her hand back instinctively, eyes wide, but the wind didn't stop. In fact, it seemed to grow stronger. The leaves outside twisted in the breeze, the rustling growing louder, like the air itself was vibrating in time with the energy pulsing from the feather. The sky outside darkened, as though a storm were suddenly brewing, though there were no clouds to be seen. It was as if the universe itself had decided to shift for just a brief, fleeting moment. "Did you feel that?" Mia whispered, barely able to breathe. Her voice trembled as she spoke, the world around her seeming to spin in slow motion. There was something undeniably powerful about the moment, something that made her think that everything she had known up until now was about to change. Lily, who had frozen in place, slowly turned to Mia, her wide eyes full of disbelief and wonder. "What just happened? Did we do that?" Her voice was shaky, the first hint of panic creeping into her tone, but there was also an undercurrent of awe, a fascination that Mia could hear clearly. Mia swallowed hard, her heart still racing. She was almost afraid to speak, afraid that any words might break the fragile, electric feeling in the air. "I don't know." She paused, unsure of how to explain what had just occurred. But then she glanced at the feather again. It was no longer glowing as brightly, but the silver shimmer still caught the light, its surface smooth and unyielding, like something ancient and precious. "But I think it's connected to something bigger. This isn't just a random thing, Lily. I can feel it. It's like it's choosing us, or at least choosing me." Lily was silent for a long moment. Her eyes flickered to the feather, and then back to Mia. She seemed to be searching for an explanation, for something to ground her, to pull her out of the surreal experience. But there was no logical answer. No explanation. Just the truth of what they had both felt. "Okay," Lily said finally, her voice quieter than before, her gaze still fixed on the feather. "That was definitely not normal. I'll admit it. Maybe there is something weird about this thing." Her voice softened, and she slowly reached out again, as if testing to see if the feather would respond. "So what do we do now?" Mia felt her heart surge with a rush of excitement. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she was on the edge of something unknown. She felt like she was standing at the beginning of an adventure. "We figure it out," Mia said, her voice filled with a quiet certainty. "We need to learn where it came from, why it's here, and what it wants us to do." Lily looked at her, still not entirely sure what she was getting into, but the determination in Mia's voice was enough to spark something in her. "All right, I'm in. But you're going to have to keep me updated on whatever weird stuff happens next, because if this is magic, I'm going to need a lot of explanations." Mia grinned, her heart lifting with relief. "Don't worry. I'll tell you everything." And as they sat there, the wind slowly dying down, the world around them returned to normal, but both girls knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The adventure had just begun. They had no idea where it would take them, or what dangers or wonders awaited, but one thing was certain. Mia and Lily were about to uncover a secret much larger than they could ever have imagined. The question now wasn't if they would discover the truth, it was when it would reveal itself. And that was only the beginning. Mia's heart skipped a beat. Her pulse thrummed in her ears, and for a moment, the world seemed to slow down. Her breath caught in her throat as she turned to Lily, her voice barely a whisper, filled with awe and disbelief. "Did you feel that?" Lily was still frozen, her eyes wide and unblinking as she stared at the feather in her hands. Her face was a mixture of wonder and confusion, and her lips moved, but no words came out at first. She opened and closed her mouth a couple of times, as though trying to make sense of what had just happened. Her hand, still hovering just above the feather, seemed unsure whether to retreat or touch it again. What just happened?" she finally managed, her voice trembling as she spoke. Her words were shaky, like she was afraid the air might start shifting again at any moment, like everything she knew about reality was slipping away from her. Mia opened her mouth to respond, to offer some explanation, but before she could form the words, the bell rang, loud and jarring, cutting through the surreal tension between them like a sudden storm breaking the calm of an evening. It was a stark reminder that, no matter how strange and inexplicable the events around them had been, the world around them was still moving forward. Class was waiting. Both girls stood up quickly, reluctantly pulling themselves away from the mesmerizing feather. The world outside seemed so ordinary in comparison. The hallways were buzzing with the usual chatter of students rushing between classes, the low hum of their conversations a stark contrast to the electric silence Mia felt still hanging in the air around them. But Mia's thoughts were a whirlwind of their own, racing faster than the speed of light. She tried to focus on the lesson ahead, tried to push the memory of what had just happened to the back of her mind, but it was impossible. The feather had changed something inside of her. It had shifted her understanding of what was real, and what wasn't. That night, after the house had quieted down and her parents had retired to their rooms, Mia found herself staring at the silver feather, its gleam soft and inviting in the dim light of her bedroom. The pull she felt toward it hadn't faded, not one bit. If anything, it had intensified. It was as though the feather was calling to her, beckoning her to unlock its secrets. She sat on the edge of her bed, the window cracked just enough to let in the cool night air, but her focus remained solely on the feather lying in the palm of her hand. She couldn't look away. As the evening grew darker, the shadows in her room stretched long across the walls, as if the night itself was deepening around her. The faint glow of streetlights filtered through her window, casting their golden hue over the room, but the silver feather, still resting in her palm, glowed. A soft, steady light of its own. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a quiet presence that seemed to whisper to her, urging her to pay attention. Mia's mind raced, filled with so many questions, her thoughts jumbled and overwhelming. What is this? Where did it come from? What does it want from me? She felt the weight of the unknown pressing against her chest, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the feather was meant for something more. Something far beyond the boundaries of her quiet, ordinary life. She swallowed hard, her voice a soft murmur that barely rose above the hum of the night. "What do you want me to do?" she whispered aloud, almost as if speaking the words would somehow make the answer appear, like the feather itself might reply. Her breath held in anticipation, as though she expected something, anything, to happen in response. But the feather remained still in her palm, the silver gleam steady and unchanging, as though waiting for her to make the next move. Her fingers traced the smooth edges of the feather, and with every delicate movement, she could feel the pulse of energy beneath her fingertips, like a heartbeat that wasn't her own. It was subtle but powerful, an undeniable sensation that there was something living within it, something ancient and powerful, something that had been waiting for the right moment to be discovered. Mia felt it deep inside, this knowledge that the feather was not an ordinary object. No, this was something else. But the question lingered, unanswered. What was that something? She looked out the window, the dark sky stretching endlessly above her, a vast ocean of stars twinkling in the distance. The night felt heavier somehow, as if the world itself had shifted slightly, and Mia had been thrust into some strange new reality where anything was possible. The quiet hum of the world outside her room seemed to fade into the background as she focused entirely on the feather in her hand. Her mind spun with possibilities. Could it be a relic of some lost civilization? A forgotten artifact from a world long past? Or perhaps it was a message, a key, meant to open some door Mia had never even realized existed. The more she thought about it, the more the weight of that idea pressed down on her. "It's not just a feather," It's a gateway to something bigger. The thought made her pulse quicken, her fingers tightening around the feather as if to anchor herself to the moment, to the mystery unfolding around her. She stood up, pacing the small space in her room, her thoughts spiraling outward. What was it about the feather that felt so familiar? As if she had been waiting for this moment her whole life, even though she had no memory of it. Was it possible that the feather had chosen her? That it had been waiting for her specifically? She stopped pacing and looked back at the feather, her eyes narrowing. There has to be more to this, she muttered under her breath, her voice low but determined. I can feel it. I'm not imagining this. The room seemed to pulse with her thoughts, as though the very air around her responded to her certainty. She could sense the promise of something great, something waiting just out of reach. But how was she supposed to uncover it? How could she unravel the mystery without knowing where to start? The only thing she was certain of was that the answers weren't going to come easily. But she couldn't walk away. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. She had to figure it out. For herself. For the mystery that was calling to her from within the feather. I'm not letting go of you, Mia whispered softly, her voice filled with a quiet promise. Her hand closed around the feather once more, her fingers pressing into its cool surface, and she knew without a doubt that whatever came next, she was ready. The world outside continued on in its quiet rhythm, unaware of the journey Mia was about to embark on. But she could feel it. The world had already shifted, and soon, it would never be the same again. The feather had chosen her, and Mia was determined to find out why. Suddenly, the room filled with a soft, almost musical sound, a fluttering, delicate rustling of wings. Mia's heart skipped, her breath catching in her throat as she spun around, searching for the source. The fluttering grew louder, the wings a soft, rhythmic beat against the stillness of her room. Her eyes darted from corner to corner, trying to make sense of the sound. The air seemed to shimmer, charged with a quiet energy, and for a brief, heart-stopping moment, everything felt suspended, as if the world itself had paused. Then, as if summoned by her very thoughts, a tiny glowing bird appeared, floating before her in the air. It was no bigger than the size of her hand, its wings beating in a graceful rhythm, casting a soft, ethereal glow that bathed the room in a faint, shimmering light. The bird's feathers shimmered with the same silvery glow as the feather Mia had found on the sidewalk, a perfect match. It was a creature of light, delicate and mesmerizing, as if born from the very essence of the feather. Its wings moved in an almost hypnotic pattern, catching the light and casting soft reflections across the walls of her room, making the whole space feel alive. Mia's eyes widened, her heart pounding as she stared in disbelief. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The bird's presence was so surreal, so magical, that she wasn't sure if she was dreaming. She felt like a child again, witnessing something impossible, something that could only exist in the pages of the fantasy books she loved so much. The bird's gaze met hers, and for a moment, it felt as if it was looking right into her soul. Its eyes were deep, ancient, and wise, like it had seen centuries of secrets unfold. Then, in a voice so soft and melodic, it spoke, its words flowing like a song. "You have found the key," the bird said, its voice carrying a soothing, almost musical tone. It wasn't harsh or demanding, but gentle and calm, as though it had been waiting for her to listen. "The feather is a doorway. You are the chosen one to discover the secrets of the hidden world." Mia blinked, her mind racing to process what she was hearing. Her mouth went dry, her legs feeling weak as she struggled to keep her balance. She had always believed in magic, but this was something beyond her wildest imaginings. She took a step back, still staring at the glowing bird, trying to make sense of its words. "A doorway," she repeated, her voice shaky with confusion. What are you talking about?" Her mind was still reeling, the weight of the words too heavy to grasp all at once. A doorway? What did that even mean? The bird tilted its head, its wings fluttering softly in the air. It didn't seem rushed or impatient, just patiently waiting for Mia to catch up. With a smooth, fluid movement, it flew down and perched lightly on her desk, the soft glow of its wings casting flickering shadows across the surface of her cluttered room. The bird seemed to glow brighter as it settled, its presence becoming even more commanding. There was a sense of peace in the air now, a calm that filled the room and settled in Mia's chest, as though the very atmosphere had transformed. "The world you see is only one of many," the bird continued, its voice now carrying a deeper resonance, as though it were speaking from far beyond the room, from a place that transcended time. There are hidden places, invisible to the human eye, where creatures and magic exist. The feather is your guide. Mia's heart thudded in her chest, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Wait, so, you mean there's more? There's a whole world I can't see? A world full of magic? Creatures? Her voice wavered between disbelief and wonder. It was like she had just stumbled upon a secret that had been hidden for centuries, a truth she could barely comprehend. The bird nodded, its wings fluttering gently in the air, almost as though it was trying to reassure her. Yes, it said simply, its tone unwavering. The feather is part of that world, a key to understanding it. And now, you have been chosen to unlock the doorway. You are the one who will bridge the gap between the worlds. The secrets of the hidden world are within your reach, but only if you are brave enough to seek them. Mia took a step forward, her eyes locked on the bird, her heart racing. She could feel the weight of its words pressing into her mind, like a weightless burden. Chosen? She was just a regular girl. A dreamer. Someone who loved books and lost herself in fantasies. She wasn't supposed to be the one to unlock some hidden, magical world. But how? Mia whispered, the question tumbling out of her mouth before she could stop it. How am I supposed to do that? I don't even know where to begin. The bird blinked, its eyes gentle but knowing. You already have, it said, its voice a low hum. The feather chose you. You have already begun by finding it, by feeling its pull. The journey will not be easy, and there are forces that would keep these worlds separate. But you have the power within you. The feather is only the beginning. It will guide you when you are ready. Mia's mind swirled with 1,000 thoughts. Her fingers trembled as she reached out toward the bird, as if she could somehow grasp the impossible reality it was presenting her with. I don't understand, she said, her voice a whisper, tinged with awe and uncertainty. Why me? Why was I chosen? The bird seemed to consider this for a moment before replying, its wings moving slowly, deliberately, in a rhythm that felt both ancient and wise. There are those who are meant to find the doorways, and those who will never see them. You were always meant to find the feather. The world has a way of guiding those who are ready, those who are destined to uncover what lies hidden. And now, the time has come for you to step into that world. To uncover the magic that has always been there, waiting to be discovered. Mia's heart pounded in her chest. She was terrified, but there was also a spark of excitement in her. The impossible was becoming real, and she was standing at the threshold of something bigger, a secret world that had always been just out of reach, waiting to be unlocked. She swallowed hard, the weight of the bird's words settling deep in her bones. What do I do now? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. The bird looked at her, its eyes full of ancient wisdom and compassion. You listen. You trust. And when the time comes, you step through the doorway. The room around Mia seemed to fade as she stared at the bird. Its words echoed in her mind, and she realized that everything had changed. Her life, her understanding of the world, had just shifted in ways she could barely grasp. The feather was no longer just a strange object, it was a gateway. And Mia was the one chosen to cross it. The bird's wings fluttered once more, its glow brightening, and then it began to rise from her desk, floating gently toward the ceiling. Mia stood frozen, her heart beating faster with each passing second. This was just the beginning. She knew it deep within her bones. As the bird hovered just above her, it turned its head to give Mia one last, knowing look. Remember, it said softly, you are the key. Don't forget that. With those words lingering in the air, the bird vanished into the shadows of her room, leaving Mia alone with the weight of her destiny and the shimmering feather that had started it all. As the bird spoke, the silver feather in Mia's hand began to glow brighter, its soft shimmer intensifying with every word the bird uttered. At first, Mia thought it was just her imagination, but then she felt it, a hum of energy, like the very air was vibrating with something powerful. The feather's glow illuminated her room, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. The light wasn't harsh or blinding, it was gentle, like the soft glow of the moon, but it carried a weight, a sense of something ancient and profound. Mia gasped, her fingers tightening instinctively around the feather as the room around her seemed to bend and warp. The walls of her room, her familiar, everyday bedroom, began to blur, as though they were made of mist. Slowly, the edges of the room faded, and the air seemed to thicken, swirling around her in a slow, winding current. She could no longer hear the usual sounds of the street outside, nor the faint hum of her bedside lamp. The world she had known, her bedroom, her home, seemed to dissolve, like water slipping through her fingers. Panic rose in her chest for a moment, but the soft, melodic voice of the bird grounded her. Before Mia could react, the room completely melted away. What replaced it was nothing like she had ever seen before. She stood on the edge of a vast forest, where the trees were like nothing from this world. They towered high above her, their trunks translucent, gleaming like delicate glass in the glow of the feather's light. The leaves shimmered with a silvery blue hue, as if they were made of crystal, and each time the breeze stirred them, the trees sang softly, an eerie, melodic tune that resonated deep within Mia's chest. It was beautiful, surreal, and utterly alien. The ground beneath her feet felt soft, almost spongy, like moss, but it sparkled with tiny flecks of light, as if stardust was embedded in the earth. Each step she took left an imprint, but the glow faded almost instantly, as if the ground itself was alive, welcoming her presence. The air smelled like jasmine and something faintly sweet, a fragrance Mia couldn't quite place, but it made her feel strangely at peace, as though she had stumbled into a dream she never wanted to wake from. Above her, the sky was different, too. It wasn't the deep blue or pale gray of the sky she knew, but instead a swirling mixture of soft purples, pinks, and silvers. Like the light of 1,000 distant stars had been woven into the fabric of the sky itself. Tiny pinpricks of light twinkled in the air, and Mia realized they weren't just stars, they were creatures, tiny floating beings like fireflies, but their wings were made of soft, glowing threads of light. They flitted about in the air, dancing in delicate patterns as if they were part of the wind itself. Around her, strange flowers bloomed from the ground, each one different from the next, their petals glowing with vibrant hues of blues, greens, and purples. But it wasn't just their colors that were enchanting. As Mia watched, she noticed the flowers were humming. Not in a way that was audible with her ears, but in a soft, reverberating pulse that seemed to resonate within her very being, filling her with an unexpected sense of calm. It was like the flowers were singing their own secret song, a tune of harmony and magic that Mia could feel deep in her bones. Creatures, too, moved through the forest. Some were small, like the glowing fireflies, but others were far larger, deer-like beings with long, flowing manes, their fur shimmering in the same silver light as the trees. They moved gracefully, their hooves silent as they padded across the soft ground. Birds with feathers that shifted in color, like living rainbows, soared above, their wings flapping in slow, deliberate patterns. And there were other creatures, too, ones that Mia couldn't even comprehend. Some had multiple wings, others had long, tendril-like limbs that swayed as they moved through the air, each one more surreal than the next. Mia's breath caught in her throat as she tried to take it all in. Every inch of this world was unlike anything she had ever imagined. This wasn't just a forest, it was a world unto itself, a realm, and she had somehow stumbled into its heart. The bird fluttered before her, its wings creating a soft breeze as it circled in the air. It hovered in front of Mia, its tiny, glowing form reflecting the magical landscape around them. "Welcome," the bird said, its voice as soft and melodic as ever. "This is the world beyond the veil. A place where magic flows like rivers, where creatures of myth and legend exist, hidden from the human eye." Mia's mouth went dry, her mind scrambling to catch up with what she was hearing. "Beyond the veil," she repeated, her voice barely more than a whisper. She looked around, as if expecting the forest to vanish and return her to her room at any moment. "This is real? This is actually happening." The bird's eyes, bright and wise, softened as it nodded. "Yes, this is real, Mia. The world you know is only one side of the coin. Behind the veil, there is a world full of magic, creatures, and wonders far beyond what your eyes can comprehend. This is the realm that exists in the spaces between your world and ours." Mia's heart pounded, the enormity of what the bird was saying sinking in. A whole other world, just beyond her reach, hidden in plain sight. She had always suspected there was more to the world, a deeper layer of reality, but this was beyond anything she had ever dared to imagine. "But how is this possible?" Mia asked, her voice filled with awe and disbelief. How can a place like this exist without anyone knowing? Why was I chosen? The bird's wings fluttered gently as it circled her again. The veil exists to protect the worlds, to keep the magic safe from those who would misuse it. But there are always those who are meant to see beyond it. And you, Mia, are one of those. You have the gift of seeing what others cannot. You are the key to understanding the hidden world. The bird's words sank deep into Mia's heart, filling her with both excitement and a sense of responsibility that felt heavier than she had expected. She had never felt more out of her depth. Yet strangely, she also felt like she belonged here, as if this magical forest, these creatures, this world, had always been waiting for her. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Mia whispered, her voice shaky. This is so much to take in. I'm just a normal girl. The bird landed lightly on a nearby flower, its glow softening as it perched. No one is ever just anything, Mia. You are more than you realize. And you will soon see why this journey has chosen you. There are things hidden within this world that even the most powerful beings cannot fathom. And it is up to you to find them. Mia stared into the vast expanse of the glowing forest, her heart racing with a mix of wonder and fear. There was no going back now. She had crossed into a world unlike anything she had ever known, and there was no turning around. The feather had brought her here, and the world beyond the veil was waiting. The next few days felt like they had slipped through Mia's fingers in a whirlwind of magic and discovery. Every moment she spent in the hidden world felt both surreal and thrilling, as though she were living inside one of the very fantasy books she had once devoured. The feather, now a constant companion, allowed her to travel back and forth between the two worlds whenever she wished. The moment she grasped it, the familiar weight of it in her hand was all it took to open the doorway again, whisking her away to the forest filled with glowing trees, sparkling ground, and mystical creatures that seemed to hum with life. She roamed through the magical woods with a sense of wonder, her eyes wide in amazement at the strange, beautiful things that surrounded her. She befriended talking creatures, an ancient owl with silver-tipped feathers who shared cryptic wisdom, a mischievous fox with eyes that glowed like stars, and even a group of tiny, delicate-winged beings who flitted between the branches of trees, singing songs that made the very air shimmer. Everywhere she looked, there was magic, as if the world itself was alive, breathing, and waiting for her to discover its secrets. She wandered through crystal-clear streams that seemed to dance with light, climbed trees whose bark pulsed with energy, and found flowers that bloomed only at her touch, their petals glowing softly under the moonlight. But as the days passed, something began to feel off. At first, it was subtle, a passing moment when Mia would return to her own world and find things just a little different. A fleeting sense of disconnection, like she had missed a beat in the rhythm of her own life. It was like she was slipping through the cracks between two realities, and the more she visited the hidden world, the more distant her own seemed. She noticed that her classmates no longer waved at her in the halls. When she bumped into them, they glanced at her with a strange, vacant look in their eyes, as though they didn't quite recognize her. Her name was being forgotten, her presence brushed aside as if she had never existed. Her parents, too, seemed distant. They didn't call out to her when she came home, their voices hollow, as if their words didn't carry the same weight anymore. Mia's mother would smile at her with a look that felt more like a polite gesture than genuine affection. Her father, usually so busy with his work, seemed to stare through her, as though she was a figure in the background of his life, a fleeting thought that hadn't quite anchored itself. At first, Mia tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was just her imagination, maybe it was all in her head. But the more she tried to reach out to them, the more distant they seemed. She felt like a ghost walking through her own life, and it terrified her. It was as though she was becoming invisible, fading away piece by piece every time she crossed back from the hidden world. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a soft lavender, Mia found herself standing at the edge of the magical forest, staring at the glowing trees as the breeze gently swept through the leaves. The air around her felt thick, as if something was about to change. She clutched the silver feather tightly in her hand, feeling its familiar weight, but this time, instead of the comfort it usually brought her, it felt like a heavy burden. Her mind was clouded with questions, and a deep unease settled in her chest. What was happening to her? What was happening to the world she knew? It was then that she heard the soft flutter of wings. The bird appeared before her, its glowing form cutting through the twilight like a beacon of light. Its eyes, wise and knowing, fixed on her as it floated just above the ground. Mia's heart skipped a beat as she approached the bird, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and confusion. "Why is this happening?" she asked, her words rushed. "Why is everyone forgetting me? I feel like I'm disappearing, like I'm not even part of this world anymore." The bird's eyes softened, and it fluttered its wings, creating a soft breeze that brushed against Mia's skin. The air around her seemed to pulse, as though the forest itself was listening, waiting for an answer. "The hidden world is a place of magic, Mia," the bird said gently, its voice echoing softly through the trees. "It is a world that exists beyond the veil, where the laws of your world do not apply. When you spend time here, you draw energy from it, and that energy begins to shift the balance between your two worlds." Mia's brows furrowed, trying to understand. "What do you mean? Is it the feather? Is that why people are forgetting me?" The bird nodded, its wings fluttering softly. "Yes, the feather is a powerful artifact. It is a link between both worlds, and when you use it, the boundary between them begins to blur. The more you step into the hidden world, the more your presence fades from the other. Time behaves differently here. Days in your world might pass in the blink of an eye, but in this world, time stretches and warps." Mia's heart sank as she tried to process the bird's words. She could feel the weight of them, but they didn't make sense. "But I don't want to disappear. I don't want to be forgotten. What do I do? How can I make it stop?" The bird hovered in front of her, its small form glowing brightly against the dimming sky. "You must make a choice, Mia. The longer you stay in the hidden world, the more your connection to the other will weaken. The people you care about will continue to forget you, and soon, they will no longer remember you at all. This is the price of crossing between the worlds. You cannot belong to both at once." Mia felt her breath catch in her throat. She never imagined that discovering this magical world would come with such a cost. She had been so enchanted by the beauty of the hidden world, so enthralled by its creatures and wonders, that she hadn't considered what might happen when she returned. Tears welled in her eyes as she stared at the bird, her voice barely a whisper. "So, what do I do? What am I supposed to choose?" The bird's wings fluttered gently, its glow softening. "You must decide whether to stay in this world, or return to your own. If you choose the hidden world, you will lose your ties to the one you know. If you choose your world, the magic of this place will begin to fade from your memory, and you will forget the beauty you've witnessed here." Mia stood frozen, the weight of the bird's words pressing down on her. The two worlds, each calling to her in its own way, each offering something she could not have in the other. She thought of her parents, her friends, the life she had always known. But then she thought of the hidden world, the creatures, the magic, the sense of wonder and freedom it gave her. She didn't want to lose that. But neither did she want to disappear completely, forgotten by those she loved. The choice felt impossible. How could she choose between these two worlds, when both had become a part of her? "You must make a choice," the bird replied softly, its voice carrying a weight that Mia could feel deep in her chest. "The more time you spend in the hidden world, the more your presence fades in the human world. You cannot exist fully in both worlds at once." Mia's heart sank at the bird's words. She had known deep down that there would be a price for all this magic, but hearing it spoken aloud made it all feel so real, so urgent. The world she had discovered, with its glowing trees, talking creatures and endless wonders, was calling to her, pulling her in with an irresistible force. But her heart ached as she thought about her family, her friends, and the life she had left behind. Could she really choose one world over the other? But I don't want to leave. Mia's voice trembled, the words coming out in a rush. Her eyes stung with tears that she refused to let fall. I don't want to forget my family, my friends, the life I know. I can't lose them. They mean everything to me. The bird hovered in front of her, its wings a soft, glowing blur in the dimming light. It seemed to understand the weight of her pain, and its eyes, so full of ancient wisdom, softened as it looked at her. I understand your hesitation, Mia, the bird said gently. But there are always sacrifices in the pursuit of magic. The hidden world is a realm of wonders, but it is also one of isolation. You can explore, you can learn, you can grow, but you cannot fully live in both places. Time here is different, and every moment you spend in this world makes you more distant from the one you've known. Mia's mind raced, her thoughts a swirl of conflicting emotions. The forest, the creatures, the sense of belonging she had felt in this place. She didn't want to give it up. She didn't want to leave this world, where everything seemed so vibrant, so alive. Here, she was more than just a girl with a math test and a quiet life. Here, she was someone special, someone important. The magic, the sense of possibility, it was overwhelming and beautiful, and she didn't want it to slip away. But then, the image of her parents flashed in her mind. Her mom's warm smile, the way her dad would always ask her about her day. And Lily, her best friend, who had always been there, who had laughed with her, who had shared her dreams. Mia had always been close to them, and the thought of losing them forever, of becoming a distant memory, was unbearable. You must choose what matters most to you, the bird continued, its voice now a soft, melodic hum that echoed through the trees. The world of magic will always be here. It will wait for you patiently. But the people in your life, the ones who are tethered to the human world, they cannot wait forever. Their memories will fade, and if you remain here too long, you will become a ghost in their lives. Mia's chest tightened as she processed the bird's words. A ghost. The idea of being forgotten, of becoming nothing more than a shadow to the people she loved, made her heart ache in a way she hadn't anticipated. How could she abandon the life she knew? How could she leave her family, her friends, her home behind for a world that, while beautiful and magical, would never truly be hers? But Mia hesitated, her voice trembling. If I leave now, if I go back, I won't ever be able to come here again, will I? The feather will take me away, but it won't bring me back. The bird's wings fluttered gently as it landed on a nearby branch, its soft light casting long shadows across the ground. No, it said, once you make your choice, the door will close. You can never walk between both worlds again. If you choose to return to the human world, you will lose the magic, and this realm will fade from your memory, as if it were a dream. The feather will no longer guide you here, and the hidden world will remain just that, hidden. Forever. Mia closed her eyes, trying to make sense of it all. Her mind was racing, her heart torn in two. She had always dreamed of adventure, of discovering something bigger than her small, ordinary life. But this wasn't just some adventure. It was a crossroads, a moment that would define her future in ways she couldn't even begin to understand. What if Mia's voice faltered. What if I try to stay here longer? What if I just keep coming back? The bird's gaze became somber, and it shook its head slowly, its wings brushing the air with a soft sigh. The worlds are not meant to overlap for long, Mia. Every time you cross, the balance shifts. The more you visit, the harder it will be to return to the human world. Your family, your friends, they will forget you more quickly, until eventually, they will no longer remember that you ever existed at all. If you stay too long, they will vanish from your memories as well. And once that happens, the connection to your world will be lost forever. The weight of the bird's words pressed down on her like a heavy stone. Mia's chest tightened as she thought of everything she stood to lose. She had always taken her world for granted, the quiet mornings with her parents, the laughter with her friends, the simple, everyday things that had shaped her life. And now she had to choose between that life and this world, a world of endless wonder, a world where anything seemed possible, but a world that might ultimately cost her everything she knew. But I don't know how to choose. Her voice was barely a whisper now, a desperate plea. How can I choose between them? How can I choose between my family and this world? The bird fluttered closer, its light softening, its voice low and comforting. The choice is yours, Mia. And it is a difficult one that many before you have faced. Magic has a way of pulling at the heart, but you must remember, your family, your friends, they are the ones who will shape the path ahead of you. Magic may offer you the wonders of the world beyond, but it is the bonds you have with others that will anchor you in this one. Mia felt tears welling up in her eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on her, heavy and relentless. The bird was right. No matter how tempting the magic was, no matter how much she longed to stay, the people in her life were the ones who made her who she was. They were the ones who loved her, who gave her meaning, who made her world worth living in. As the bird's wings fluttered softly around her, Mia took a deep, shaky breath. She knew what she had to do. Mia spent the night in a restless haze, staring at the glowing silver feather that lay in her hand. The light from the feather seemed to pulse with a life of its own, casting long shadows across her room. Every time she glanced at it, she could feel the pull of the hidden world, the magical forest, the shimmering creatures, the sense of wonder that had filled her days since she first discovered the feather. It was an enchantment like nothing she had ever known before, a world that felt so real, so alive, it was hard to imagine returning to her ordinary life. Yet, as much as the hidden world had captivated her, Mia realized something deep within her heart. She couldn't ignore the pull of her family, the warmth of her parents' love, and the laughter she shared with her friends. The quiet moments with them, the everyday connections, were the things that truly made her world worth living in. Those were the things that grounded her, that gave her life meaning. The magic of the hidden world was dazzling, but it didn't compare to the love and memories she had with the people who mattered most to her. She thought about Lily, the way her best friend always had her back, how they'd spent countless afternoons together, sharing secrets and dreams. Mia thought of her parents, their smiles and their constant support. They were the ones who had been with her through thick and thin, and they deserved to have her back, to remember her, to share her life with her. The hidden world, as magical as it was, wasn't her home. And so, as the night stretched on and the weight of her decision bore down on her, Mia knew what she had to do. The magic in her hand, the adventures she could have, the mysteries she could solve, they were all incredible, but they weren't worth losing everything she already had. Magic had its place, but love and connection, those were irreplaceable. The room was quiet when Mia finally made up her mind. She gently placed the silver feather on her desk, the soft glow still illuminating her surroundings. Her fingers lingered on its smooth surface for a moment, as though saying goodbye to a part of herself. She closed her eyes, her heart heavy with the knowledge that she was choosing the world she knew, the one filled with people who loved her, over the fantastical unknown. In a soft whisper, she spoke the words that felt both like a declaration and a release. "I choose the world I belong to." The moment she said those words, the feather's glow began to dim. The soft light that had surrounded her room faded away, leaving only a faint shimmer. It was as if the world itself was exhaling, a long, deep sigh, as though the hidden world was letting her go. Mia's chest tightened with an odd mixture of relief and sadness. She had made her choice, but the magic of the hidden world would always remain a part of her, no matter what. As the last of the glow faded from the feather, Mia looked up. The magical bird appeared once again, hovering gently in the air before her. Its wings sparkled with soft, iridescent light, and its eyes held an ancient wisdom, as if it had seen countless others like her make this very choice. "You have made a wise choice," the bird said, its voice full of warmth and approval. "The world of magic will always be there for you, whenever you need it. But remember, you have the power to bring magic into your own life, through your heart and your choices." Mia's heart swelled at the bird's words. She had always believed in the power of dreams, of possibilities. But now she understood that the true magic was not found in hidden worlds or enchanted forests. It was within her, in the way she chose to live her life, in the love she gave and received, and in the connections she nurtured. Every choice she made could bring magic into her world, as long as she chose with her heart. The bird nodded gently, its wings rustling as it floated closer to Mia. "Magic is not just in the things we see or the places we visit," it continued. "It is in the people we love and the way we show up for them. That is the greatest magic of all." Mia smiled softly, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. The feather might not glow anymore, and the hidden world might seem far away, but she knew now that the magic would never truly disappear. It would always be with her, in the choices she made and in the people she cherished. The bird fluttered its wings one last time, its soft light beginning to fade as it prepared to leave. "Remember, Mia," it said, "whenever you need to find your way, just look inside yourself. The magic is there, waiting to guide you." With that, the bird vanished into the air, leaving Mia alone in her room once more. The silence that followed felt different, calmer, as if the weight of her decision had settled inside her like a quiet promise. She looked at the silver feather one last time, now just a simple, ordinary object, and for the first time in days, she felt truly at peace. Mia turned and walked over to her window, gazing out at the familiar view of her neighborhood. The sun was beginning to rise, casting a golden light over everything. She could hear the distant hum of the world waking up, the sound of life carrying on, just as it always had. And Mia knew that, no matter what happened next, she was ready to embrace it. She had chosen her world, and it was a world full of love, connection, and endless possibilities. The magic of the hidden world would stay with her, not as something distant or out of reach, but as a part of her own story, woven into the fabric of the life she had chosen to live. With a deep breath, Mia smiled to herself. She was ready for whatever came next. Mia smiled softly to herself, a warmth spreading through her chest that she had never felt so clearly before. She sat back against her desk, the soft hum of the morning settling around her as the golden light from the rising sun filtered through her window. It was a moment of quiet realization, simple but profound. "I don't need to live in a magical world to make my life magical," she whispered, almost as if to reassure herself. The words echoed in her mind, and for the first time, they felt absolutely true. She didn't need to search for another world, a place beyond the veil, to find wonder. She didn't need to live in the midst of enchanted forests or communicate with glowing birds. Because, as she sat there, reflecting on all that had happened, Mia understood something far greater. Magic wasn't about places or people. It was about perspective. It was about finding the extraordinary in the everyday. It was in the moments of kindness, the joy of helping others, the shared laughter with her friends, and the love from her family. Magic was in the small things, the warmth of a hug from her mom, the soft smile from her dad after a long day, the sparkle in Lily's eyes when they shared a joke. All of those things were magical, and they didn't need to come from faraway lands or hidden realms to feel special. Mia closed her eyes for a moment, her mind drifting back to the silver feather. She could still feel the coolness of it in her fingers, the way it had shimmered and pulsed with light, almost as though it had a heartbeat of its own. She thought about the magical bird, its soft wings fluttering in the air, the way it had spoken to her with such calm certainty. "The magic is not out there, waiting for you to find it," the bird had said. "The magic is in here," it had whispered, pointing to Mia's heart. A peaceful feeling washed over Mia as she let the memory of the hidden world settle into her heart. The places she had visited in her mind, the wonders she had seen, they weren't gone. They were still with her. All she had to do was close her eyes, take a deep breath, and remember. The shimmer of the feather, the glow of the trees, the soft rustling of the leaves in the magical forest. It was all still there, alive in her memory, in the quiet corners of her mind. But now, Mia realized, she didn't need the hidden world to be happy. She didn't need to escape. She had the power to bring magic into her everyday life. When she felt lonely or lost, when things felt heavy or confusing, all she had to do was pause and remember. The magic was not in a faraway place. It was in the moments that were happening right now. The soft breath of the wind on her skin as she walked to school, the laughter of her friends, the way the sun warmed her face in the morning. These were the moments that held magic. Small, fleeting, but infinitely precious. Mia stood up, her heart light with the understanding that the adventure she had sought was not out there in the hidden world. It was here. She could bring that sense of wonder to her everyday life, in the way she interacted with people, in the choices she made, and in the way she carried the lessons of her journey within her. She could make magic wherever she went. As she packed her school bag and grabbed her jacket, the same feeling of excitement bubbled up inside her, the same feeling she had when she first discovered the feather. But now, instead of longing for something beyond her reach, Mia felt at peace with where she was. She had everything she needed. When she stepped out into the world that had always been hers, it felt different. Brighter, somehow. As she walked down the sidewalk, her feet in rhythm with the sounds of the morning, birds chirping, the faint rustling of leaves, the distant hum of traffic, Mia smiled. She was no longer just a girl going about her day. She was someone who carried the magic of the world with her, someone who could see the beauty in the smallest things. She was part of the world she had once thought was ordinary. And in that moment, she realized that the magic wasn't something you had to seek. It was something you made every day, through the love you gave, the kindness you shared, and the joy you allowed yourself to experience. The world she had once thought was too small to hold magic was the very world that had always held it. The magic she now knew was inside her, in her heart and her choices. It was in the way she saw the world, not in some faraway dream. Later, as she sat with Lily at lunch, laughing over a silly joke, Mia felt that warmth again. It was a quiet, comforting magic. Something that whispered that everything she needed was right here, right now. She didn't have to look anywhere else. The world of the hidden forest, the sparkling creatures, the shimmering feather, would always be with her in her heart. But Mia had found something even more powerful, the ability to create her own magic, to find wonder in the ordinary, and to share it with the people she loved. And that, Mia realized, was the most magical thing of all. Moral of the story. Magic isn't just found in faraway worlds or glowing feathers that shimmer with otherworldly light. It's not about escaping to enchanted forests or seeking out hidden realms where creatures and secrets lie waiting. True magic is woven into the very fabric of the life we live. It's in the moments that often go unnoticed, in the simple, everyday choices that shape who we are and how we see the world. Magic is in the way we choose to look at the world around us, and in the heart of every interaction, every gesture of kindness, every act of love. It's about being open to the beauty of the world as it is, and realizing that the adventure you seek might be right here, right now. We often spend our lives searching for something more, something greater, believing that the answers we seek are far beyond our reach. We dream of finding something magical, something that will make our lives extraordinary. But what if we've been looking in the wrong places all along? What if the magic we seek is not in some far-off land or a hidden treasure, but in the small, fleeting moments that make up our daily lives? What if it's in the laughter we share with a friend, the comfort of a hug from a loved one, or the quiet satisfaction of a job well done? The most powerful magic isn't something you need to chase. It's something you create, in the way you live each day. It's in the way you approach the world with an open heart, ready to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. It's in the small, seemingly insignificant moments that, when added together, form a life filled with wonder and meaning. And often, the most magical thing you can do is simply be present, truly present, with the people you love and the life you've built. In the end, magic isn't something that can be contained in a world beyond our reach. It's already here, all around us, in the people we connect with, the dreams we pursue, and the way we choose to see the world. The adventures we seek don't always require a journey to another realm. Sometimes, the greatest adventure is the one that begins within ourselves. The adventure of learning to see the world with wonder, to live with purpose, and to realize that everything we need is right in front of us, waiting to be discovered. The real magic Mia discovered wasn't hidden in a distant land. It was found in the love she gave, in the choices she made, and in the way she chose to live. It's in every moment we take the time to appreciate, every relationship we nurture, and every step we take toward embracing the magic of the life we already have. So, the next time you feel like searching for something more, take a moment to look around. The adventure, the magic, the beauty, it's all here, right where you are. You just have to open your eyes and let it in.